get an answer.
At more than one of the previous meetings of the local groups, there were people who presented themselves after the deadline and they were allowed to speak. So I wish to ask, is that going to be done today also?
Billy, you shut down the surveys, didn't you? Yeah, it's what, 6:30?
Well, we didn't shut down the surveys, we let them keep coming.
Oh.
But we stopped
Speakers.
for the speakers like we were supposed to.
Our
I'm
cutoff
afraid I
time
can't
is,
hear you. Can
our
you-
cutoff time is 6:25. 6:25 is the cutoff for speakers.
I don't think that this was a matter of 25. I think that they were, I don't think at any meeting, local meetings or this committee meeting, there's ever been 25 people that have asked to speak.
Maybe I misunderstood your
I-
question, sir. Maybe I misunderstood your question.
No, my question is then, and let me restate it, at more than one of the previous local meetings, people who arrived after the cutoff time of 6 o'clock, 6:30, whatever it was, were allowed to sign up and speak. And my question is that going to be done today?
No.
That's all I wanted to ask. Thank you.
See, you did give me an answer.
Thank you. Okay, we'll call a meeting to order. As we've said prior to, this group is here to gather information. We're not a decision-making body, and normally we don't answer questions unless it's a direct question. Each of the speakers will be given 3 minutes. We'll have a timer. When your 3 minutes is up, we'll let you know, or if you get through before then, that's fine. We would ask that everybody consider the speakers, it's their 3 minutes. When you get up and you have your 3 minutes, it's your time. JC, you got anything to add?
No, I think we'd like to cover that for it.
Okay. At this time, I'd like to consider an act on the minutes of the previous meeting.
Make a motion that we approve the previous meeting minutes.
Okay. Billy had sent out the minutes to all the committee members. Have a motion that we approve the minutes as written.
Second.
Got a second with James. All approve, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. We got report on commission on precinct meetings. Start with number one and just briefly, have you had your meetings and was it a good turnout, a bad turnout? We don't want a lot of details. Precinct one.
Last week we had Precinct 1 meeting at the Landmark Church of Christ. We had 7 speakers, and there were probably 15 or 20 people in the audience, and everything went well.
Precinct 2, and I think those were already done at the last meeting. They had their 2 meetings that were wrapped up before our last meeting. They had a low turnout the first time and a larger turnout the second time. Precinct 3.
Precinct 3.
Oh, is that Joy?
Yes. Precinct 3, we've had 2 meetings, one on the 8th at the Able Springs Fire Department, and we had approximately 20 people there. We had about 6 or 7 speakers. We had a meeting, our second Precinct 3 meeting was on the 12th, which was a Monday night, last Monday night at the Terrell Police Department. We also had 7 speakers that night, and we had a room full of people, I would say 20, 25 people. And we had an article in the paper, at the Terrell paper, and we had our pictures in the paper. So If you're interested, look at last week's Terrell Tribune, and that will give you information on what happened.
Thank you. I didn't know we had celebrities in the board.
Yes, the Terrell Tribune.
Precinct 4.
We had our meetings back in September, so we've been through with them for quite some time. We had 2 meetings, both of which were well attended, and we had, I think, 8 speakers at the first and maybe 4 at the second.
Thank you. At this time, we'd like to go into letting the public do their speaking part. First speaker that we have is Shelby Devaney. Sorry if I don't pronounce your names correct.
That's pretty close. You did good. So, good evening. I want to start by saying that I believe slavery is wrong. I think no matter where you stand on the matter of the statue location, we can all agree on this. To purchase, to sell, or to own the life of another human being is simply unethical. The Confederacy was born in order to protect the way of life of the Confederate States. One of the central issues that they fought for was the right to uphold the institution of slavery. This is not my opinion, it's history. Look it up in any textbook, any encyclopedia. So if you're arguing that the Confederate statue represents our history, I agree with you. You're right. However, slavery is not a part of our Southern history that I'm proud of. It's not the part I want to be known for. There are many ugly parts of history that we remember, but not to praise them, not to place them in a position of prestige. Instead, we remember and we refuse to repeat mistakes of the past. The statues should be moved elsewhere, away from our courthouse grounds, somewhere where history can be remembered, but not a place of justice and honor that upholds the principles of fairness and equality. The year 2020 will be in the history books, I'm sure of that. I hope at least a small portion of that has a positive outcome, one where we can say that we stood up for decency and for goodness. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Our next speaker will be Raylene Sloan.
It's all right.
I don't ever get anybody's name right.
I've been called it all. As the comments on the monument draw to a close, many arguments have been made on both sides. On the side of leaving the monument at the entrance to the courthouse and that of moving it to another location. Regardless of recommendations made, I would like to thank the committee for listening patiently. And I would like to thank those who have spoken their thoughts. Whether we agree or not, we are all still neighbors worthy of respect. We are all Kaufman County, every last one of us. Much has been said about history, but I do believe that we must look at all history, and in this case, I think we need to spend some time in Texas's past. I would like to read directly from the Texas Articles of Secession. This document is available through the Texas Archives Library, and I thought we should hear from those Texans who are now a part of our history, those Texans who made it quite clear why they were joining the Confederacy. This is a portion of what they said. She, Texas, was received into the Confederacy with her own constitution and the compact of annexation, that she should enjoy these blessings. She was received as a commonwealth holding, maintaining and protecting the institution known as Negro slavery, the servitude of the African to the white race within her limits, a relation that had existed from the first settlement of her wilderness by the white race, and which her people intended should exist in all future time. We hold as undeniable truths that the governments of the various states and of the Confederacy itself were established exclusively by the white race for themselves and their posterity, that the African race had no agency in their establishment, that they were rightfully held and regarded as an inferior and dependent race, and in that condition only could their existence in this country be rendered beneficial or tolerable. That in this free government all white men are and of right ought to be entitled to equal civil and political rights. That the servitude of the African race as existing in these states is mutually beneficial to both bond and free, and is abundantly authorized and justified by the experience of mankind and the revealed will of the Almighty Creator, as recognized by all Christian nations. Those words hurt my soul. I cannot imagine how they feel to our black neighbors, and yet we continue to tell them, get over it. Get over it that the Confederacy called them inferior. Get over the Confederacy saying their descendants belonged in slavery because it was God's will. Get over the statute that glorifies that same Confederacy. Get over it.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Mark Burks.
Senate committee members, my name is Mark Burks. I'm a 47-year-old resident of Kaufman County. I'm also a direct descendant of a Revolutionary War soldier, 11th generation Southern and 5th generation Texan. I believe the Confederate monument should stay exactly where it is, remain untouched, and no defamation should be followed. I'm also the great-great-grandson of a Confederate veteran. His name was Maston M. Burks. He was a private in the 37th Texas Confederate Cavalry, Company C, Terrell's Texas Cavalry, many of which a lot of Kaufman residents were in that regiment. My great-great-grandfather was a resident of First Smith and later Van Zandt counties after moving from Alabama around 1856. He did not own any slaves and had several children to work his land, which was a custom in those times for poor farmers. He did not enter the war to fight to uphold slavery. He enlisted in 1863 as the war was getting closer to home and fought to keep Texas free from federal troops invading our great state. In April 1864, he fought at the Battle of Mansfield and the Battle of Pleasant Hill, both in Louisiana. There he received a major wound to his hand. In the aftermath of the battles, the federal forces retreated back down the Red River and never entered Texas. At the Battle of Mansfield State Park, the state of Texas erected a monument honoring all of the Texan forces who fought there. The inscription reads as follows, quote, Texas remembers her sons by whose valor and devotion the federal enemy was defeated at Mansfield April 8, 1864, and thereafter in several bloody engagements driven from the Red River Valley. Thus was Texas saved from the physical ruin wrought by the war in every other southern state, end quote. Many today are trying to belittle and demonize his efforts and those of his fellow soldiers and compatriots. This monument is for all Confederate heroes who bled and died and fought to spare Texas from those who sought to destroy our great state and its inhabitants. The efforts of those who are against this monument are spitting on my great-great-grandfather's memory and all Texans who served and defended our state during that time, as well as the widows and orphans who helped erect this monument to their husbands and fathers. The opponents who seek to remove the cenotaph are demoralizing and demonizing what it truly stands for. The opposition is misusing God's holy word for their own purposes and agenda by calling it an idol. An idol is anything that consumes a person's time, money, or efforts more than they set aside for God. The opposition appears to be consumed with the removal of this monument. As a servant of the Most High God and my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, this is what purely disgusts me. I must refrain from using the same tactics, for that is evil in the eyes of our Lord. Every man will have to answer for his own wrongdoing, if not in this life, in the life to come, myself included. In closing, I again invoke my First Amendment constitutional right to freedom of speech, which my forefathers fought to establish and defend with their lifeblood. Do not remove this monument. Removal is desecrating honorable memory to all American veterans who fought for their homes and their family and their country. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker will be John Elsner. I'm working on these names.
I didn't spell it very good, I'm fine.
Oh, you did fine.
I appreciate the opportunity to speak before the committee. The thing that always got me before all this started up is, why is this statute an issue now? And I'm thinking, well, because that's the thing now, is destroying statutes seem to be more popular now than before. The thing I look at is it's a reminder of what happened in the past, long before we and our parents were born, that this part of our history was not good, but that it won't happen again. If the statute is removed, what's next? I want to stay as a reminder to not only this generation, but generations to come, that we do not repeat this mistake again. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker will be Jennifer Robinson.
You know, I could go over a lot of historical stuff with y'all because, frankly, most of the people who want this statue down are completely ignorant of history. They have been spewing propaganda they've gotten through places like the Southern Poverty Law Center. Propaganda that is false, that is meant to incite riots, and is meant to divide this country. So, you know, I'm going to talk about what the other problem is, and it's political. And some people have said it's not political. Well, if it isn't political, why is Allison Novak here on this committee? You see, the Democrat Party sent her here to infiltrate this committee, to shut people like me up. The first thing she did was to make a motion to limit people to 3 minutes. The next thing she did was to make a motion that no one could trade their minutes and give it to someone else. She claimed it was going to keep people from being able to say everything they needed to say. But that's because I spoke for 15 minutes to the county commissioners and told them about the Democrat plan to take this monument down, to get rid of everything in this country. Because I've been told to my face by professional agitators that is the Democrat plan. And in fact, page 40 of the Democrat Party platform has removal of Confederate statues. James Henderson claimed he's the voice of Kaufman County, that he is recording everybody so that he can take their voices back to the commissioners. What he did was send his video feed to a group that he runs with his Antifa friends on Facebook and mocked Cena Taft supporters. When I caught him at it and exposed him on Facebook, he went back and deleted that post, but not before I have your video. I have your screenshots. You, sir, are a liar. You are trying to intimidate Cena Taft supporters, and you have no business on this committee. Both of you are doing this for political reasons. What, Allison, did me finding out that you have some wealthy slave traders in your family just cause you to suddenly do this? You should be ashamed of yourself. You have become infamous in this county for denigrating and calling people names, anybody who doesn't believe your Democrat views. You may have been intimidating the women in our group, but I am not afraid of you, and I have screenshots of the things you said and the ugly names you have called people. This is political. They are trying to take down everything this country stands for back to the Mayflower. And I am not going to sit here and be silent while people like these two intimidate and try to get us shut up. These people out here, they're being told what to say. They haven't studied history. All they have done
please.
is say what they're told to say by people like Antifa and the Democrat Party.
Thank you. I'm going to break precedent right here. Normally, we take criticism from the committee. I do not know what Allison and James do in their private time. While they're members of this committee, they have done nothing to influence anybody.
I'm sorry. This man videotaped as a member of this committee claiming that he was doing it for the commissioners while he put it on Facebook for his Antifa followers. That is a violation of what he should be doing as a committee member. So do not say that he did not do it as a committee member.
Yeah, we're not.
We do have evidence that members of this committee have been.
Okay, I'm a point of order. That's the reason we had the rule that we would not speak back to the audience, but I felt that need a correction on something that I was the one that instituted the 3-minute limit, because that's what we do in our meetings with our special utility.
The minutes specifically state Allison Novak did it. I saw her do it. I watched her. That is incorrect, sir.
I broke my rule of not speaking to the thing. I apologize. We'll move on to the next speaker. Casey Cunningham.
Good evening. My name is Casey Cunningham. I am in favor of moving and or relocating the statue. I am a lifelong resident of Kaufman, Texas. I am a historian, an Army wife, a mom of 3, and a proud American. The legacy of the Confederacy that has been taught has been based on half-truths and blatant lies. While it is obvious that not everyone owned slaves, it is also an inescapable truth that the institution of slavery greatly influenced Southern society and way of life during the antebellum and Civil War era. The South was built entirely upon slave ownership, those who ran in campaigns and held political offices, those who owned plantations, and those who were socially elite. All owned slaves. Slavery was everywhere and was the basic foundation of life in the South. This is not something that I was taught while growing up. I was taught, however, that the Civil War was a war between the states. This half-truth leads one to believe that America was at war with itself, when in actuality it was fought between 2 independent nations. The Confederate States of America went to great lengths to separate itself from the U.S., to stand against our basic principles of freedom and equality. They were independent with their own constitution, a president, and a flag. Their battle flag, rather than the national flag, is now a symbol of pride in the Confederate heritage. This is also a symbol of a fallen nation that clearly refuses to accept defeat. The idea of the United States is as fragile today as it was when the foundation was established with the creation of the Constitution in 1787. The infrastructure of the U.S. can and will crumble within if we continue to point out our differences and glorify that which has divided us. The statue on our courthouse lawn says, "Honor to their memory, glory to their cause, and peace to their ashes." May we be the generation that finally stands up and says, "No more." We will no longer tolerate anything that stands in opposition of our great nation. We will proudly stand and say we are nations. We are citizens of the United States of America. May we live lives that demonstrate that we are a nation under God, one and indivisible. May we always seek liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker, Mr. Rob Jones.
Well, I come before you for the last time. What are we going to do with our Tuesday nights now? We have seen over the course of the last 8 months, very definitely certain elements in this country have worked in a partisan, and make no doubt it is partisan, a partisan political game that would have them engaged in repudiation of our history. An attempt to topple all the complex but admittedly flawed heroes. And they are flawed, as all of us are, because we're all human. But they wish to topple these complex but admittedly flawed heroes of not only this nation, but of this state and of this county as well. The motivation is not just to topple bronze, marble, and granite, but it is to topple the very underpinnings of our republic. That is majority rule. We know already that a majority of the voters of Kaufman County are in favor of leaving the monument just where it is, regardless of what efforts some members of this committee may have taken in order to get votes the other way in their polling. You see, last year there was a vote, you remember I spoke about last time, or I should say last spring, where of all the votes cast in this county, both Democratic and Republican, almost 75% voted to keep the monuments up. We know what the answer is, but yet there is this attempt to defeat majority rule. There is also this effort to stifle the freedom of expression and freedom of thought, and to disrespect the views of others. And I bring this up because I have to be here today for my clients. You see, I represent a number of people. Some of them you'd probably laugh and say, oh, those blue-haired old ladies. They're afraid to get out. They're afraid with Antifa coming here. Antifa invited by people who are actually on this committee and working for a one effort, a solution on one side of this, not being impartial at all. But there is no doubt whatsoever. There's the word slavery is not on the monument. What is there is in honor of our Confederate dead.
Time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Robert.